She is very difficult to officiate because of all of the contact that's happening around her all of the time. That being said, I was in contact with a number of WNBA coaches yesterday about this topic of the officiating in the WNBA.
What Rebecca Lobo is about to say about Caitlyn Clark and the WNBA refs is absolutely eye-opening, and the WNBA brass can't ignore it anymore because while we have just witnessed the most incredible demonstration of the Caitlyn Clark effect in the wake of the WNBA's poor officiating in the Fever Sun game, that same officiating could also crush the WNBA entirely. And Rebecca, a WNBA legend, just sounded the alarm. This goes beyond a logical argument. She revealed what people are saying behind closed doors across the WNBA about the state of the officiating. The league won't like this, but all of it needed to be said, because if we've learned anything, it's that the WNBA has learned absolutely nothing when it comes to handling its golden goose Caitlyn Clark. Let's break down what Rebecca said, and also the developing story with the Fever that is great news in many ways, but at the same time makes the WNBA's inaction that much scarier. But first, like this video, every like equals a spare whistle for the refs, since the one in their pocket clearly isn't getting used. And don't forget to subscribe for more Caitlyn Clark and Fever updates. Let's rewind for a second, because the WNBA needs a reminder.
The nerve, the second-year player clearing out that side of the floor, shooting on Stewie, and then watch the reaction with one another. Stewie's laughing.
Just a few games ago, Caitlyn Clark made her victorious comeback. She scored 25 points in the first half, including 3 logo bombs in a 38-second span. Her performance was so electrifying that it reminded everyone in the league who is truly in charge of the team, not just the fans.
Is down behind the play, but they've got Caitlyn Clark. 2 players with incredible up. Clark, another long 3. She's back!
This was the game's statement of statements that crystallized everything. The WNBA depends on Caitlyn Clark, and the 5 games she missed weren't merely a blunder. They were a publicity blunder that resulted in a decline in viewership, a collapse in social engagement, a flatlining of national interest, and an abrupt feeling that every WNBA plot without Caitlyn was background noise.
But here we go with Caitlyn Clark singularly being missing for the time she was gone, and ratings tanking, 50% in some cases. And then also she comes back and reminds everyone how spectacular she is, and everybody's talking about the WNBA. So if you needed to sort of have it affirmed to you that it is just her, that the singularity of her is what we are talking about, and her star power, you got it with this absence and then the way she came back.
For context, Caitlyn Clark's homecoming lifted the whole WNBA after weeks of plummeting ratings and increasing pressure. Their game versus the Liberty peaked at 2.8 million viewers, making it one of the most viewed WNBA broadcasts ever. The NHL's Stanley Cup Finals drew an average of 2.5 million viewers, and while it's true that hockey and basketball aren't exactly the same, Caitlyn Clark just outdrew a 100-year-old men's sports league in its championship round. While the significance of this seems to have gone entirely unnoticed by WNBA leadership, which we'll discuss later, it hasn't gone unnoticed by Olympic gold medalist Basketball Hall of Famer Rebecca Lobo, perhaps the most composed person in the room. Before I get to her remarks regarding the referees, take a look at her explanation of how seismic Clark's return was.
Becca, tell me, what does Clark's return mean for the WNBA?
Well, I mean, it means a lot more people are paying attention once again. We know how much Caitlyn drives ratings. We know how much Caitlyn drives attention on the WNBA. And for her to come back and do it in that way was just ridiculous.
Take note of Rebecca Lobo's statement that people are once again watching. Although it's a modest statement, it conveys everything, because if someone is watching again, it indicates that they stopped, and we all know exactly when that occurred, when Caitlyn Clark was gone. Lobo continued by explaining why viewers were rushing back as soon as Clark reappeared.
I'm sitting there at the end of the first quarter when she had that 38-second stretch where she drained deep 3 after deep 3 after deep 3. I was just sitting there thinking, I've been around this league since 1997. I have never seen that in a WNBA game. Have we seen players go on runs? Of course we have, but not like that. Not where a couple of the three-pointers are from 30-plus feet. It was an exhibition by her.
That's the problem. Fans pay attention because few, if any, players can perform these logo bombs from a different zip code as frequently and effortlessly as they did. They weren't your typical long twos, or even deep threes. Even Natasha Cloud, who hasn't been kind to Caitlyn's supporters, has to admit that you need to protect her as soon as she crosses the center line. Ask Rebecca. This isn't typical.
It was just ridiculous. It's not often that you're watching the WNBA or that I'm watching it and I'm like, wow, I've just never seen this before.
All of this makes what has been happening, not just since Caitlyn returned, but honestly throughout the entire previous season, and now this one. Especially worrisome because we are talking about a pattern that is so clear and blatant that even seasoned WNBA insiders like Rebecca Lobo are speaking out about it, and the game against the Sun should have sent shivers down the spine of the league.
This angle is wild, folks. There's the eye gouge. Watch Mabry. Boom! I mean, come on.
JCS Sheldon and Marina Maberry essentially tag-teamed Caitlyn Clark mid-aim with a claw to the face, followed by a body check to the court. However, this isn't me acting like Caitlyn wasn't chatting with JC earlier. She was, but trash talk isn't a license to assault someone. You can't just knock the league to the ground like it's WWE and expect it to fly. The reaction was that the same coaches, analysts, fans, and players were all in disbelief by what transpired.
Hey, we would have been crashing that RT.
Courtney, if somebody ever tackles you like that,
Nobody would ever tackle me like that. They would play with Bridget like that, and then we would have to like take it up there.
okay.
You see what I'm saying?
But I'm just saying.
Nobody would ever play with me like
If
that.
that ever happened, you better crash out behind me, because I'm crashing out behind you.
T,
We can share the same jail cell.
Naturally, Caitlyn's face claw and shove was the widely shared incident that everyone was talking about, but the tension had been building throughout the game, and the referees were overlooking it.
This is JC Sheldon right here with an entire handful of Caitlyn Clark's shoulder and bicep, and she's twisting it. Okay? I mean, this is wild. Here's the zoomed out look, the snapshot. I mean, this league does not have control of its players.
And the chippiness quickly increased from simmer to boil, and it was evident from her body language that Stephanie White was furious following the game. Before she even spoke, she sat down, took a deep breath, and then completely unloaded.
You know, the game has changed so much. Players are faster, they're better, they're bigger, they're stronger. You know, they're as good as they've ever been, they're as athletic as they've ever been. The game is fast now. Things are happening quickly. Everybody's getting better, except the officials.
That's about as bad as you can make fun of the referees without actually naming names. We're all improving, and you're not. It's cruel and goes right to the heart of what a lot of players, coaches, and supporters have been feeling. The problem is that this wasn't just a problem during the Sun game. It started throughout the season with missed calls, inconsistent officiating, and the way players like Caitlyn Clark are officiated differently and not in a protective manner.
What was that play? Oh my god, this is rigged. This is rigged. She got yanked, fell on her hip. That's a hack! That's a hack! That's a hack! Oh my god, they hacked the one upon her and they hacked Caitlyn Clark. They are both hacks. They are both hacks. They hacked Fever twice, and then there was a phantom foul called on Sabrina Ionescu.
The Fever's 90-88 loss against the Liberty, which became a boiling point for both players and fans, was the culmination of what was clearly clear from the preseason that they weren't getting the calls. That evening, it seemed like the referees was biased, calling ticky-tack fouls for New York while Indiana was unable to purchase a whistle. With the Liberty making a lot of attempts and the Fever seldom reaching the stripe, there was a noticeable imbalance at the free throw line, but what really enraged spectators were the dubious or non-existent calls in the closing minutes. The worst happened right at the end. Video after video revealed that Caitlyn Clark had been obviously fouled by Natasha Cloud on the last possession, and social media erupted as commentators called it out. Fans were incensed, and Stephanie White went off.
I thought she got fouled. You know, I think it's pretty egregious what's been happening to us the last few games. You know, a minus 31 free throw discrepancy. And I might be able to understand it if we were just chucking threes, but we're not. We're attacking the rim. And the disrespect right now for our team has been pretty unbelievable. So it's disappointing, that it doesn't go both ways, or it hasn't gone both ways.
It's funny that she was fined for this, but not for berating the referees following the Sun game. It almost seemed like the league was acknowledging fault in silence, as if they knew it was unjustifiable and, in all honesty, they ought to do so because, before we even discuss Rebecca Lobo's remarks, which are illuminating and dangerous for the league, we must discuss the growing annoyance among the WNBA as a whole.
The second time where I'm attacking, it's very physical. I'm saying something to the ref, watch my landing space, watch physicality. I get laughed at, and it ends in my ankle getting turned. The same thing happened in Dallas, a flagrant that wasn't called. Same thing happened here. So my ankle is hanging in there, but it's starting to get very frustrating. I'm averaging less than 2 free throws a game, and I drive, like I'm physical. I'm not someone who's avoiding contact. So I just hope that the safety of players starts to become a priority versus the ego of refs.
As players are out there stating, "I'm going to get hurt if this keeps up," the referees are actually laughing at them when they raise concerns about rough play rather than dismissing them. And now let's go back to Rebecca Lobo and how all of this relates to Caitlyn Clark because, let's face it, whether they want to admit it or not, everyone knows that if Caitlyn loses, it's game over. Fans, players, networks, and the league. To her credit, Rebecca didn't sugarcoat it. She said what needed to be said in the most tactful way possible. But if you actually listen to what she said, it's even more worrisome than you might have imagined.
Very difficult to officiate because of all of the contact that's happening around her all of the time. That being said, I was in contact with a number of WNBA coaches yesterday about this topic of the officiating in the WNBA, and all of them said it needs to get better. Specifically, the consistency, not only from one game to the next, but the consistency within a game.
Did you hear her say that not just some coaches are worried? She said that every single coach she spoke to agreed that officiating is a major issue. To make matters worse, if all the coaches agree that the referees have lost control, they will have no choice but to change their rules and play by an unwritten one that states, if the refs won't protect our players, we will. That's when things get dangerous.
Coach told me we tell our players to be as physical as they can possibly be for 40 minutes because we know for 38 of them, they're pretty much going to get away with it. So I think everybody would like to see a tighter whistle and a little bit more freedom of movement.
The WNBA is currently creating an environment where players are forced to be more physical even though it's unsafe because it's about survival and they know the referees won't step in. We've already seen what that leads to the blatant fouls against Caitlyn Clark. It's exactly like telling drivers to go as fast as they want because there is no highway patrol, and if you don't speed, you'll get left behind even if it's unsafe. The cheap shots the body checks the growing annoyance of coaches and supporters, and eventually when it keeps happening, it ceases to feel like an oversight and begins to appear as though the league is subtly stating that it's open season when it comes to protecting Caitlyn Clark.